The fork slipped from my hand and clattered against the plate. For a moment no one spoke. Not my son, not his wife. Not even the children who had been laughing just seconds ago. I stared at Daniel, searching his face for the hint of a joke, a flicker of regret, anything that would tell me I had misunderstood. But there was nothing, only impatience. "You heard me, Mom," he said, leaning back in his chair like he'd just made a reasonable request. "We're leaving early tomorrow morning. 2 weeks. Maybe 3, you'll stay here with the kids." Throat tightened. "Daniel, you didn't even ask me." "Telling you now," he replied, as if that settled everything. Across the table, his wife Clara dabbed her lips with a napkin, avoiding my eyes. And just like that, something inside me shifted. I hadn't always lived with my son. After my husband passed away 5 years ago, I had stayed in our small home for as long as I could. But grief has a way of hollowing out walls, making rooms echo with memories you're not ready to face. Daniel insisted I move in with him. "It'll be good for you, Mom," he'd said back then, his voice warm, his hand steady on my shoulder. "You won't be alone, and the kids adore you." Wasn't wrong. Little Sophie used to crawl into my lap every evening asking for stories. Max would tug at my sleeve, begging me to play in the garden. I felt needed again, useful, loved. "At least I thought I was," Daniel snapped, pulling me back to the present. "Why are you making this a big deal?" I swallowed. "Because it is a big deal. You're asking me to take care of 2 young children for weeks without even consulting me." Finally spoke, her voice smooth but cold. "You live here, Isla. It's not unreasonable to expect you to contribute." Contribute, the word strung more than I expected. "I do contribute," I said quietly. "I cook, I clean. I help with the kids every day." Shrugged. "Then this isn't anything new." "It's not the same," I said, my voice trembling now. "You'll be gone completely, that's a full responsibility." "And," he said flatly, "I'm 60 years old, Daniel, I get tired, I have my own limits." Leaned forward, his expression hardening. "So what are you saying, you won't do it?" The room felt smaller, the air heavier. "I'm saying you should have asked me," I whispered. He exhaled sharply, clearly annoyed. Then came the words that would stay with me forever. "If you do like it," he said, "then leave." Swallowed the room whole. Sophie looked up at me, her wide eyes confused. "Grandma, are you going somewhere?" I couldn't answer because for the first time the thought didn't feel impossible. It felt real. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Leave, the word echoed in my mind over and over again. Where would I go? My old house had been sold. Most of my savings had gone into helping Daniel with this home. Their home. I had told myself it was worth it, that this was my family, my place. But now, lying in the dark, I realized something painful. This wasn't my home anymore, it was a place where I was convenient. Around midnight I heard soft footsteps. The door creaked open and Sophie slipped inside, clutching her stuffed rabbit. She whispered. I sat up, forcing a smile. "What is it, sweetheart?" She climbed into bed beside me. "Are you leaving?" My heart cracked a little. "I don't know," I admitted. She wrapped her tiny arms around me. "Please don't go, I love you." Burned my eyes as I held her close. "I love you too," I whispered. And in that moment I knew the hardest part of any decision I made wouldn't be Daniel, it would be them. Morning came too quickly. I walked into the kitchen to find Clara already dressed, scrolling through her phone. Daniel stood by the counter, sipping coffee. "We are leaving in an hour," he said without looking at me. "Kids' schedules are on the fridge." No apology, no discussion, just instructions. Something inside me finally snapped into clarity. "Daniel," I said calmly. He glanced up, surprised by my tone. "I won't be staying," he frowned. "What? I won't be staying with the kids while you're gone," Clara scoffed. "You're being dramatic." "Being honest," I replied. "You made a decision without me, so now I'm making one for myself." Set his cup down a little too hard. "This is ridiculous. Where do you think you're going to go?" "I'll figure it out." Laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You can't just walk out. Watch me." I packed my things slowly, not in anger, not in haste, but with a strange sense of calm. Each folded shirt, each tucked-away photograph, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I had quietly given away. When I picked up the framed picture of my late husband, I paused. "We always said we'd grow old together," I murmured, but life had rewritten that plan, and now I had to rewrite the rest on my own. The children stood by the door as I brought my suitcase out. Max clung to my leg. "Grandma, don't go," was crying silently, her small hands wiping at her cheeks. I knelt down, pulling them both into my arms. "This isn't goodbye forever," I said gently. "I promise." "Then why are you leaving?" Sophie asked. "Because staying would mean losing myself." But I couldn't say that to her. "Because sometimes," I said softly, "grown-ups need to make hard choices to be happy again." Watched from the hallway, his expression unreadable. "You're really doing this," he said. "Yes, don't expect us to come running when things get tough." I met his gaze steadily. "I'm not asking you to." For a moment something flickered in his eyes, uncertainty, maybe even guilt, but it vanished just as quickly. Fine, he said. Go. I stepped out of the house with nothing but a suitcase and a heart full of uncertainty. The door closed behind me with a quiet finality, and just like that I was on my own. The first few days were the hardest. I stayed in a small guest house, the kind with thin walls and creaky floors. It wasn't much, but it was mine, at least for now. I found a part-time job at a local bakery, something simple to keep me busy. The owner, Mrs. Khan, was kind. You remind me of my sister, she said one morning, handing me a cup of tea. Strong but tired, I smiled faintly. That sounds about right. Slowly I began to rebuild. I made new routines, took evening walks, started reading again, something I hadn't done in years. And for the first time in a long while I felt peaceful, not needed, not obligated, just myself. 3 weeks later my phone rang. Daniel. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. Hello, his voice was strained. Mom, we're back. I said nothing. We need to talk. When I arrived at the house it looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. The children ran to me, hugging me tightly. Grandma, Sophie cried. You came back. I told you I would visit, I said, kissing her forehead. Daniel stood in the living room looking different, tired, worn. We messed up, he said quietly. Clara sat on the couch, silent. You left us with no backup, he continued. We had to cut the trip short. It was chaos. I raised an eyebrow. Imagine that, he sighed. I didn't realize how much you were doing, how much we were relying on you. Without appreciating it, I added. He nodded. I'm sorry, Mom. The words hung in the air, simple, late but sincere. Clara finally spoke. We took you for granted. That wasn't fair. I studied them both. I love you, I said. And I love those children more than anything, but I won't come back to live here. Daniel's face fell slightly. Not even now, not even now. I knelt beside Sophie and Max. I'll visit often, I promised. We'll still have our stories and our games. Sophie smiled through her tears. Okay. As I walked away that day I felt something I hadn't in years, not sadness, not regret, but strength.